dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Will Puckett. Federal prosecutors say it involves 350,000 prescriptions and more than 32 million pills. Part of a takedown by the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force. 5 of those right here in eastern Kentucky. WYMT's Justin Case is in Pikeville to break it all down. Justin?
Will, you mentioned the 5 people from eastern Kentucky charged as part of this investigation. Well, right behind me is the Pike County Detention Center. 3 of the 5 charged are being held right here behind me now. 60 people total are facing charges in 11 total states. That includes right here in Kentucky. Now, this is all part of an investigation focused on prosecuting people involved in the illegal prescription and distribution of opioids. Now, one of the doctors charged is Dr. Mohammed Mazumdar. We actually stopped by his office in Prestonsburg earlier today, but all of the doors were locked. We couldn't talk with anyone inside. Now, he's accused of providing pre-signed blank prescriptions to office staff who then used them to prescribe controlled substances while he was out of the office. Now, he's just one of 5 medical professionals in eastern Kentucky charged. Others include Dr. Cy Gutty of Pikeville, dentist Denver Tackett of McDowell, Dr. Scott Akers of Pikeville, along with his office manager, Sarissa Stamper. Earlier today in a news conference, Robert Duncan, who is the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky, said this investigation is far from over.
With today's actions and takedown, the work of the strike force is not done. Strike force members will continue to work in partnership, investigating and prosecuting opioid-related crime committed by medical professionals in these districts and elsewhere.
Well, the CDC estimates that around 130 Americans die every single day from the opioid crisis. Now, the Attorney General, William Barr, he's described the opioid crisis as the deadliest drug crisis in American history. We're going to have a lot more coming up at 6 o'clock, so stay with us. We'll have more on this investigation coming up. Will?
Thank you, Justin, for sure. We'll be right back with you in just a few short minutes. Thanks, buddy. Well, as part of a Broken World unit, Redbird Christian high schoolers learn to tackle social issues, much like addiction here in Appalachia. WYMT's Taylor Upchurch has an inside look at personal letters written by students who choose to take action.
So it is a disease, but is it a choice first?
Teaching through personal experiences.
I want them to feel like they have more power than I did growing up.
These literature classes are filled with kids.
Those were some of the worst days of my life.
Who tell their stories to change lives.
My father, and I wish he was home. We are absolutely going to learn grammar. We're going to learn how to write, but we're going to learn how to do it in a way that it affects the real world and gives you a sense of agency in what you're doing.
This debate of whether addiction is considered a choice or a disease leads to a student-run campaign. 2019 Redbird Road, Resist Opioid Access and Dependency.
People younger than me really are, getting their lives torn apart, their families torn apart.
Each letter personal, from the heart, sent to political, medical, and legal leaders. Students say what emotion lies inside is often difficult to read.
Drug addiction breaks families apart in my community.
Families being torn apart, to parents leaving and people throwing them away like they're nothing because the drugs have become such a problem in their life and they become the main priority over their kids.
Fortunately, not all kids feel this pain.
I don't really know how they feel inside, but I just feel the need to help.
Yet they continue to reach out to those just down the hall who do.
They're not the only ones hurting, it's the families also. And we're here for support and to let them know that they're not alone.
Teaching young hearts as well as young minds. In Clay County, Taylor Upchurch, WYMT Mountain News.
It all starts there. As part of the 2019 road campaign, students plan to host a candlelight vigil for anyone affected by substance abuse at the Redbird Christian School track. Registration begins at 6:30.
It was another warm and beautiful day here in the mountains, but we are starting to see those clouds increase a little bit ahead of that next system that'll be moving in a little bit over 24 hours. You'll notice as we take a look at downtown Whitesburg, a little bit of those partly to mostly cloudy skies, and much of the same story as we look over into Jackson, looking at those mostly cloudy skies with some sunshine peeking through. Temperatures still warm into those mid-70s, feeling like those mid-70s too, with those very dry dew points outside. And as we take a look around the area, you'll notice those lower 70s as we head up until Lexington, they're dealing with a little bit more cloud cover. I think us down into the Cumberland Valley and over into Hazard, where we're just a little bit warmer. We're dealing more of those partly cloudy skies. Now you'll notice satellite and radar shows those clouds kind of moving in and out throughout the day. A little bit heavier clouds as you look up to the north in the Big Sandy region, while down to the south in the Cumberland Valley, they're seeing more of those pockets of sunshine. But we'll keep those 70s around for the next couple of really hours. We won't drop it to those 60s until a little bit later after the sun goes down, and we'll continue to see those clouds increase as well as we head into the overnight hours. I'll have more on that full forecast coming up for you guys in just a little bit.
It was a beautiful day today, Paige. Just absolutely gorgeous. Well, a big tax break for wealthy Americans could be the break struggling communities need. But as Washington correspondent Kyle Madura explains, skeptics worry the plan only amounts to a handout to the rich, not a hand up to the poor.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are already set aside, ready to be injected into about 9,000 struggling communities across the country. White House spokespeople expect that figure to exceed $100 billion in the near future.
We can already see in the data that there's kind of a race to help the most disadvantaged people in America.
A recent change to the country's tax law allows those who cash in by selling stock or property to slash their tax bill. The catch? They need to reinvest their profits into businesses and properties in areas singled out for an economic pick-me-up. Investors only get the full tax break if they keep that cash in the community for 10 years.
You're going to be creating jobs and opportunities for people to gain the kinds of skills that will allow them to escape dependency.
The White House still needs to iron out the fine print over the rules and regulations surrounding opportunity zones. But critics say it's already clear. The idea is fundamentally flawed.
The overall effects of these programs have been very limited.
University of Albany professor Timothy Weaver argues developers don't need a financial assist in places like New York City or anywhere else where investment is already on the rise. He says historically investors use incentives like these to chase profits, not invest in community-centered projects like low-income housing.
It's not going to be the kind of thing that's going to help poor people in poor neighborhoods.
Hundreds of communities across the country want to give it a shot, though, with locals making a trip to the White House Wednesday to learn more about selling themselves to big investors. In Washington, Kyle Madura, WYMT Mountain News.
Now, state officials designated 143 opportunity zones in Kentucky. It's official. Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky is running for yet another term. This would be his 6th term for the 77-year-old Senate Majority Leader. At this point, no other Republicans are challenging McConnell for the seat. The only Democrat who has announced a candidacy is activist Stephen Cox. In his last election, McConnell beat Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes to win his 5th term in office. McConnell was also recently named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people. U.S. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is in Kentucky today. DeVos and Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin held a roundtable discussion on school choice today in Lexington. The two talked about the issue with a panel of education organizations, community leaders, as well as a current student and her mother. One proposed program is called Education Freedom Scholarships. It would set up a federal tax credit for donations to the program. A similar scholarship tax credit bill was proposed in Kentucky this year, but lawmakers did not pass it.
Well, the reality is it actually meets the needs of kids who don't fit in where they've been assigned.
From Lexington, Governor Bevin and Secretary DeVos traveled to Marshall County High School, where they presented a federal schools emergency response to violence grant as that community continues to recover from last year's school shooting. Trying to crack a cold case. State police in Kentucky held a news conference this morning remembering murder victims killed nearly 5 years ago. Today, they asked for help to find the person who killed Kathy Netherland and her 16-year-old daughter, Samantha. The two were found dead inside their central Kentucky home back in 2014. Police updated the public on evidence in the case in hopes someone knows something.
I try not to focus on why it happened, because there's nothing that Kathy or Samantha did in life that would ever explain the violence that was brought to their home.
Police are only telling us about one lead right now. They are still looking for the driver of a black Chevy Impala, possibly a 2010 to 2014 model. It was a car seen in the area around the time of the murders. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, from a multi-sensory room to sedation suites, we take a look at the new state-of-the-art center, changing the way disabled patients receive dental care.
And we're seeing a few clouds increasing ahead of the next system that'll be moving in late Thursday into Friday. Good news is Thursday looks good for now. We also have that Easter forecast coming up for you guys in just a few short minutes.